Hey guys, what's up? Here's Max. Today I'm going to bring you the newest Dragon Ball Hakai story. This time is a story that's focused on our most beloved villain of all time, the Emperor of the Universe, Frieza. Everyone knows Frieza, right? But no one knows this villain's past. Nobody knows about his race, how the empire he rules came to be, and many other things. In this Dragon Ball Hakai side story called Dragon Ball Hakai Special, the story of Frieza, we're going to tell you about Frieza's past, his race, and his family. Find out in this story what Frieza's race was like, what happened to that race, how King Cold founded his empire, and much more. Stay connected in this channel and let's go to the video.
Hakai.
Chapter 1. The Fall of the Ice Planet. Winterforth was a planet that existed in one of the most remote regions of the universe, a region where sunlight could not reach, and the nearest star was very far away. Because of that, this planet was constantly night and cold. Despite this, the people of the planet, the winter race, managed to survive. The unbelievable cold of the planet did not affect the winters, and the lack of lighting was compensated thanks to the technology of the race, which, even living in a place with practically non-existent natural resources, had a very advanced technology thanks to a foreigner who brought a great revolution technology to the planet. Royal Castle of Winterforth. A man of the winter race is kneeling, talking to someone who is apparently his father. He warns that he is sure an attack is approaching. The other man, who is the father, says he doesn't know why his son has such ideas. He reveals that his son's name is Cold, while explaining that the disappearance of some scouts means nothing. The spy ships disappeared while they were scouting locations far away from their planet, so it's probably nothing that directly involves them. While tapping his toes anxiously to the ground, the father is revealed to be sitting on a throne, and meanwhile he continues to argue with his son that space is full of dangers, including many risks of accidents involving celestial bodies or any other phenomenon. He concludes by saying that his son worries too much, but Cole doesn't like his father's last statement and says that worrying too much is a king's duty, because it helps to foresee problems and deal with them. The king doesn't like Cole's words, asking what his son knows about being a king. He argues that he has ruled Winterforth for 80 years, and will rule much longer if age permits. Unless Cold wants to claim the throne sooner, of course. But the prince, as he lowers his head fearfully to his father, says he doesn't intend to do that. The king praises his son, saying this is a wise choice. He says that Cold is powerful, and in the future will be even more powerful than him. But that moment has not yet come. He ends by telling his son not to worry, as if Winterforth comes under attack, he is powerful enough to protect them all. Without saying anything, Cold gets up, turns his back on his father, and walks away. As he leaves, he shows all his anger. Cold flies to a distant region, and then he lands in front of a frozen cave. In a place that looks like some kind of laboratory, two people who are clearly not of the winter race are working in a technological equipment. One of those people appears to be a child, and the child looks a lot like Kikono, a scientist in Frieza's army, and this adult male appears to be of the same race, but none of them have been named yet. Suddenly a door opens and the two are very scared. Who enters is Cold, who reassures them while reminding them that only they have access to that planet, which is a clue that something secret is happening there. The man asks the prince for forgiveness for the scar, and then justifies that he fears that King Ice will find out what is happening there. Cold approaches the incubator at the center of the laboratory while the child leaves scared. The prince says that his father is an idiot and can't see an inch in front of his nose, much less anything like that. But he decides to stop talking about his father and asks how the experiment is going. While touching the incubator, he complains about the fact that he is still too small and admits that after so many months, he thought he would be bigger. The scientist explains that this is normal and that the process of genetic reproduction by technology is still very limited, especially with the resources of this planet. He also says that the energy used to make these gears work comes from the main technology center of the planet, and to make the process go faster, he would need more energy, which means they could notice the deviation of energy and the scheme would be uncovered. While looking seriously at the man, Cold asks him to skip the complicated explanations and answer how soon he will be ready. The man decides to do as Cold orders and explains that in a year the child will be able to come out of the capsule, and then he will take the common maturation time of the winter race. Cold doesn't like the answer. He says he thought he could be more competent. But the man doesn't like the prince's words either and reminds him that if King Ice finds out that he is replicating Cold's DNA to make him an artificial child, the king would certainly pass a very heavy judgment on him. So it's good Cold give great value to the work being done there. Cold argues that if his father wasn't a complete idiot, this wouldn't be necessary, but due to the king's lack of wisdom, he needs to increase the strength of the planet quickly. Cold says that unlike the other Winters, his family's genetics are very privileged, and they from the Arcosian clan are immensely stronger than the others of this race. Cold says that he feels that something very bad is going to happen, and that's why he needs to increase the number of powerful beings like them. But the natural process of reproduction of Winters takes a long time, so he needs to speed up the process. But the scientist doesn't really believe in this justification, saying ironically that Cold is a prince, very concerned about his people. Cold doesn't like the man's line, asking if he's implying that the prince wants to betray the king. The man is startled by Cold's apparent anger, and backs off, saying he would never think that. Cold likes to hear this and then says that he doesn't like his insinuations very much, and that he should kill the man for his disrespect. But the problem is that he is too useful, since if it weren't for him, the planet would not have advanced so much in technology. Cold says that he will use his influence and contacts to get powerful power generators, and then he will bring the generators, and they will no longer need power from elsewhere. Cold says this is a risky move, but it will pay off. He says 2 generators should be enough. The scientists say that they don't need 2 generators. 1 is enough to create cooler. But Cold, smiling, remembers to let the man know he wants another child, which is why they need 2 generators. This leaves the man in complete shock. Cold orders him to prepare a new capsule as his new son will be born, and this one will be called Frieza. A few months later, a group of spaceships approaches Winterforth. In the royal castle, Cold yells at his father asking what is going on. Kneeling before the king's throne, the prince says he heard that enemies are approaching the planet, but the radars should have warned them of the approach at least 5 days away. King Ice asks the other soldiers present there to leave them alone, and the men obey. After the soldiers leave, Ice explains to Cold that for some reason their radars did not detect the approach of the enemies as they should, and only now did they notice their approach. Very angry, Cold says that this must have something to do with those scouts who disappeared, and that they were certainly captured and forced to tell their enemies the secrets of their radars. Ice says there's no way they can be sure about that, and besides, this isn't the time for them to discuss that kind of thing. A soldier quickly approaches the king and the prince, and the reason for this rush is to report that enemies are already attacking the planet. The enemy's attack was much faster and more organized than the Winters could have imagined. In a short time, their powerful ships destroyed the buildings of the cities, even attacking the main military installations of the planet. The attackers were fierce, completely ruthless, and unscrupulous. Their soldiers were not only well-trained, but powerful as well. Their power surpassed the powers of the Winter soldiers, and the enemy hordes quickly overwhelmed the planet's defenses. It wasn't long before the royal castle of Winterforth was besieged, and the planet was already fighting with its last forces. A group of invading soldiers fall dead from the sky. Those responsible for this were Prince Cold and a group of Winter warriors, but neither Cold nor his soldiers are doing very well. In his thoughts, Cold reflects on the fact that these enemies are considerably stronger than the Winter soldiers, and to make matters worse, they are in great numbers. A volley of shots comes towards them, and those shots hit Cold and the soldiers around them. While Cold blocks the attacks, the soldiers, much more fragile than him, are traversed and killed. With smoke blowing from where the shot hit him, Cold looks angrily at those responsible for it. The group of invading soldiers also glare at the Winter Prince. Cold launches a great wave of energy against the enemies, which are completely obliterated by the prince's power, leaving only his crumbs in the air. Another shot hits Cold, who takes the blow in pain, and then looks angrily where it came from. He flies towards those responsible, who are 2 invading soldiers, and reaches them, hitting them at the same time, causing great pain to both enemies while crossing their bodies with his hands. 2 more enemies approach. Cold launches the 2 soldiers he has in his hands against them, making the wounded soldiers collide with the approaching soldiers, and then he fires 2 energy lasers that first cross those who were already injured, and then the 2 others. The 4 fall from the sky, unable to fight. Angry and out of breath, Cold complains about the enemies never ending. After that, he looks at the castle where an explosion catches his attention. In the upper courtyard of the castle, a large number of corpses are accumulated, indicating that an extremely fierce battle was taking place there. Flying over the courtyard, a large group of enemy soldiers huddled together, apparently trying to hold someone back. Suddenly, a large amount of energy is accumulated, and then an explosion happens, throwing all the surrounding invaders away. Standing among them is King Ice, who is wounded and panting, indicating that he has faced tough battles thus far. Cold approaches his father, saying that they need to think of a plan right away, or they will be defeated. But another figure appears stepping out of the ship that has just approached them. This figure is a very strange man, who wears a different costume from the other invaders. This person's presence alarms Cold and Ice. Interested in them, the strange man comments that apparently they are stronger than the others. Cold recognizes this person and is amazed that he is there, but Ice doesn't know who he is and asks Cold if he should know. Cold wonders if his father didn't read the reports of his spies and says that about 10 years ago they found out about a king named Klaus who was on a devastating campaign across the universe. Cold says that no planet was able to resist Klaus and his hordes, but they were a long way from Winterforth, and Cold had no idea they would come to such a desolate part of the universe. Cold finishes talking, doubting their chances of winning in this fight. King Ice doesn't like his son's statement very much, and after gritting his teeth, he advances towards the enemy while stating that no one can defeat him, much less the two of them together. And so he calls his son into combat, hopeful of his victory. Cold tells his father to wait, but Ice does not obey and attacks Klaus with a blow. But the Winter King's blow has no effect on the enemy king, and this leaves Ice very amazed, wondering what is happening. Teasing Ice, Klaus asks if he is the king of the planet and then says he now knows why these people are so weak and mediocre. He lands a hit on Ice, a hit he apparently doesn't put that much effort into, but it's already strong enough to make the Winter King spit blood and fall from the sky onto a city building. Cold sees no option but to react, and while complaining about the situation, he flies towards the enemy. But before Cold can attack, Klaus attacks first, landing a punch to Cold's abdomen while deducing that he is the successor prince, and then saying that he is a joke. After that, Klaus puts both hands together and hits Cold with a strong blow, also throwing him towards the buildings and making him destroy them with his body. King Ice returns to his enemy with ferocity, vowing to finish him off. The king reaches Klaus, touching his chest and accumulating a large amount of energy that seems to surprise the invading leader. Ice screams, ordering his enemy to die, and seemingly releasing all of his power, fires a powerful wave of energy at close range at the enemy king. But to Ice's surprise, Klaus is unharmed, with just a few scratches on his armor. Ice is completely shocked by what he's seeing, while Klaus claims that he is so mediocre that he deserves to be punished for even touching him. And after saying that, he captures Ice's arm and performs an attack, which despite looking simple, is enough to cut off the Winter King's arm. Ice screams in pain as blood splurts profusely from his wound. Cold, while getting up with difficulty because of the last attack, looks scared to the sky, realizing now what happened. Realizing now that his son was right, King Ice says that this enemy is a monster, and recognizes that he cannot defeat him. The Winter King tries to flee, but in the next moment a large amount of his blood is expelled. And the reason for this is that the enemy's arm has pierced his chest. While having his arm across Ice's chest, Klaus holds his head while revealing that he has a peculiar tradition, taking the heads of his enemies as a trophy. Hearing this, Ice despairs as he pleads with his enemy not to do this. And as his head is pulled off, he screams for his son's help. But Cold doesn't help. He's paralyzed with fear seeing that terrifying scene. With Ice's head in his hand, Klaus lets the Winter King's body fall, while his son watches. Looking at Cold, he says that the prince will be next. But to the invading king's surprise, Ice is still talking, and he's telling Cold to help him. Seeing Ice talk even in that situation, Klaus says that what he's doing is very disgusting, and as he throws the head to Cold to catch it, he says he doesn't want a talking trophy. Cold reaches out his hands to hold his father's head, but suddenly, the Winter King's head explodes, and only his blood reaches his son. That happened because an attack was launched by King Klaus, who is amused by the situation, laughing and mocking the fact that Cold really thought he would let his father go. Klaus says that now it's Cold's turn, but the prince runs away saying he won't allow that to happen. Klaus calmly watches the prince escape and concludes that a coward like him is not even worthy of his pursuit or being killed by him, so he will let his soldiers deal with it. After all, there's no reason for him to bother killing the prince if he can't have his head afterwards. Elsewhere, someone walks with hurried steps. It's the scientist and his son, who appear to be escaping somewhere, while the scientist says it's lucky that Prince Cold left a spaceship for them to escape with his son's capsule in case of emergency. And as they walk towards the ship carrying their stuff, he adds that with this confusion, Cold and Ice wouldn't notice their escape. And with so many enemy ships, nobody will pay attention to their ship appearing on the radar. This speech is evidence that the scientist and his son were not so happy to live there. The child asks if there is no risk of the enemies attacking them, but the father replies that if they stay, they will be killed, so they need to take the risk. Suddenly, the laboratory gates are destroyed by the bodies of 2 invading soldiers, and it is revealed that many of them are killed by someone on the way there. That person is Cold, who extremely is hurt and tired, asks what they are doing. The child and his father are frightened by the prince's presence, and the man tries to justify it by saying that they cannot stay there. And unfortunately, he says that the planet's army will not resist. Cold agrees, saying the planet is doomed, but angrily asks if they were planning on running away without him and his children. The scientist is surprised by that, asking if Cold will also escape. What about his father and their kingdom? Cold responds by saying that his father is dead because of his foolishness, and about the kingdom, he will rebuild it later along with them. Realizing what Cold was referring to, the man is taken aback, and Cold, while watching his 2 children in the incubator, assures that with his powers and theirs, no one in the universe will be able to oppose them, and so a new empire will be born, the Empire of the Arcosians, led by King Cold. Planet Winterforth and the Winter Race are being destroyed by King Klaus's attack, but Cold still sees hope for a new beginning with his children. What will be the fate of Cold and his family now? Find out in the next chapters of Dragon Ball Hakai Special, The Story of Frieza. And that was the first chapter of Dragon Ball Hakai Special, The Story of Frieza. I hope you enjoy it. Now, comment what you thought of this chapter. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget your like and subscribe to the channel as we become 200,000 subscribers strong. Until the next time, goodbye.